I don't think you'll be getting this from the mainstream media. Israeli soldiers have just stolen over $54 million from a Gaza bank. And let's be clear, this is not counting all of the millions and millions they've stolen from other areas of Gaza. This is not counting everything else they're stealing from Gaza. This is not counting all the stuff that's laying in the rubble in Gaza that Israel will eventually steal. This is just specifically this one bank in Gaza. And so I want to be clear that 54 million is a tiny drop of what they are stealing from Gaza, not to mention the entire land. I mean, that's really the goal, right? This is ethnic cleansing. The goal is to steal all of it. But $54 million stolen, and I assume this is printed cash, stolen from a Gaza bank. This is admitted. I.D.F. has admitted they have stolen $54 million during this special genocide operation from a bank in Gaza. The article says Israeli soldiers seized 200 million shekels from the Bank of Palestine headquarters in Gaza City. 200 million shekels is equivalent to $54 million, according to an Israeli newspaper. But they also quote Israeli officers, so it's not just the newspaper, it's also the I.D.F. Citing Israeli officers said a military force took the funds allocated for the Ramallah-based Palestinian Authority. And here is the Israeli military spokesperson said, quote, Israeli soldiers were at the Bank of Palestine headquarters in Gaza last week to prevent money from reaching Hamas. What a lovely alibi. What a lovely euphemism for stealing millions of dollars from a people you are currently genociding. We were just stopping it from getting to the bad guys is what we were doing. And because I can't do an Israeli accent, I'm going to do a Southern accent like this is the U.S. military, which it kind of is. We went in there, and what we did is we made sure the money didn't get to the bad guys, and we sent that money to my bank account. We handed it out to our folks so that the bad guys don't get it, is what we did. Could you imagine if let's go back to another well-known genocide of my people, the Jews, during the Holocaust. Let's go back to that. Could you imagine, and I'm sure they did say this probably, I mean, this is probably out of a Nazi playbook also, but could you imagine if the Nazis said, as they were stealing money from all the Jewish people, from the banks, obviously they stole all the jewelry, they stole everything, right? From the Jews they were genociding. They were ethnically cleansing in what was a horror show and what is now a horror show. They stole everything. But could you imagine, how would you feel? How would you view it as the Nazis said, we need to take the money and the jewelry so that it doesn't go to harming Nazis? Would you be like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's perfect. Good idea. That's great. Now, granted, I realize I'm creating a hypothetical. I'm sure the Nazis did say things like that. I can't imagine they did not. And yet again, and I don't think a lot of it, I don't think it's intentional. Here you have Israel behaving in the same way the Nazis behaved and giving many of the same explanations the Nazis gave, which is, again, this world. I titled this episode, we're at a fork between two possible worlds. Possible worlds are unfolding right now. One is the one in which we stand up against this genocide, and no matter who it's being perpetrated by, no matter who it's being perpetrated against, we as a world are able to come together and say, this is what genocide looks like, and we won't be okay with it. We won't stand by and watch it happen. We are not going to allow this. So that is one world. And it seems to me, in many ways, we're headed towards that world, which would be wonderful, okay? If you look at the ICJ decision, if you look at the fact that 80% of this world, the population is in countries that are not endorsing Israel's genocide, it's probably over 80%. If you look at the massive protests around the world that are happening against this genocide, seems like we're headed towards the better world, okay? But there's obviously a fight going on right now, and it could easily get pulled one side or the other. And the side that the U.S. and Israel and the Canadian government, and obviously I'm talking governments, and the British government and the German government, the side that they are right now, the world they're pulling for is a world where genocide can be perpetrated. And we stand back and go, well, those are our allies, so it's fine. Those people were wronged in the past, so it's okay. Or the people that are genociding don't have as much money and influence, so it's fine. Or they're not allied with us in war, or they don't sell us oil. They don't have a lot of things to sell us, so it's fine. That this world, the other option is a world where genocide becomes allowable under a lot of circumstances. That is the world that Israel is trying to get you and me and all of us to think is the future we want to live in. And that is a horrifying future.